just that.
Allergies killing me. Hello everyone, I am Dat Blind Guy. Today we are going to watch the video, The Forerunners would be a great faction in 40k. Well, no, they would destroy 40k, honestly. I watched the first video of this series about 2 days ago, and I look forward to putting together this video. I've always enjoyed Pancreas Snowworks videos, and this should be pretty interesting. Let's get into it.
I meant survive, not thrive. They wouldn't be winning the great game that is Warhammer by any means, just staving off defeat and giving the other factions a bloody nip.
Yeah, that's true. Covenant would be they'd be another faction in 40k. They wouldn't really be a hazard to it.
When the situation called for it. So despite what you might think, I wasn't just fanboying over Halo with all my might, because I acknowledged that the Covenant would be supreme. See, Imperium, Necron, and Tyranid fans, we can get along. Until the Forerunners show up and wipe the galaxy completely clean, that is. Now I'm just gonna fanboy over Halo.
Yeah.
The Forerunners would be a horrible faction to put into 40k, because it would be like if you put the War in Heaven Catan into the modern-day setting of the galaxy. Not the Necrons, the Catan is their own faction. I should mention that there's gonna be spoilers for the Forerunner series of books, so if you haven't read those, I would recommend it, because they're really good, but either way, just be forewarned of that. Let's dive into some Halo. A little bit of background to set the scene first would probably be smart. In Halo, the Forerunners were the civilization that made, well, Halo. Seven of them,
that makes sense.
Though before that there were 12 until they got exploded. They had roughly 3 million worlds in their domain, and their technology could do pretty much anything you could think of. Lived nearly forever, Dyson spheres, and massive artificial planets. If it's a sci-fi megastructure or something like that, then the Forerunners had at least one of them, most likely several. They controlled the galaxy nearly without equal, fighting and winning a war with ancient humanity and its allies who were nearly as advanced as they were. There were also the Precursors, who seeded the galaxy with life before being overthrown by the Forerunners. Not quite related, but if you haven't noticed, Halo loves giving its alien species descriptors for names. There was, of course, also the Flood, who finally put the Forerunners to the sword after millions of years of dominance, but we'll get to them later. Their empire, the Ecumene, lasted from about 10 million BC.
Oh, wait. Damn. For those out of the loop, Earth has a radius of 12,000 kilometers. This is the middle disk alone is almost 10 times the size of our planet in radius. How fucking colossal is this? Holy shit. I mean, I knew it was gonna be big, but goddamn, it is big. Sorry it takes me a while to read these. I am blind. This eye don't see nothing, and this eye's nearsighted. Also, red text with no background is kind of hard to read.
To 100,000
it is for me, at least.
Now, if your Forerunners is from the first 3 games, then you'd reasonably think that I've lost my goddamn mind. I mean, yeah, you could tell they were ancient and powerful, but there just wasn't enough info on them to assume more than that. Similar to mankind during the Dark Age of technology or the pre-fall Eldar, there just wasn't enough knowledge of the Forerunners to get a good picture. You can theorize all you want, but it'd be just that.
Allergies
theory.
killing me.
You scrap a few hits, or the Didax Promethean that can be taken down with 5.56 rounds. This is because you're never fighting the Forerunners in the Halo games. You're fighting a shadow of their shadow. In the Forerunner trilogy of the books, and even with some of what we can see in modern Halo games, they're shown as one of the most powerful sci-fi factions to ever been written, at least before we start getting to things like the Z-Leverse, where the Big Bang is weaponized into a mass-produced assault rifle. No, I'm...
Okay. What the fuck is Z-Leverse? Round 2. Also, am I the only one that didn't hate the Prometheans? I don't know. People in the comments, comment below. When you were fighting the Prometheans in Halo 4, Halo 5, was it bad? Was it boring? Was it fine? Did you like them? I think they look cool. They feel a little over-designed. I thought they were fine.
Not making that up. Why don't we get the elephant in the verse? No, not that one.
Ah, good joke.
In the blink of an eye, everything sentient in the galaxy is dead.
And everything dead. Oh shit. And everything dead. Orcs dead. Tyranids dead. Imperium super deceased. Emperor probably too. Everything instantly deleted.
Everything that isn't a Necron and maybe the Tyranids, depending on how close they are to the Flood, is just gone. If you don't happen to be traveling...
Nah, the Nids are dead.
Depending on how you think it works, Chaos could either be supercharged because of the rapid and simultaneous death across the galaxy would be racked with warp storms if not just have a whole new Eye of Terror created, or the Chaos Gods would all die out because everything feeding them just bit the dust. Either way...
I'd say it's essentially all three. First, the Chaos Gods and just all the gods in general all get mega charged because every soul in there that ever prayed to them is now in their domain. And there are warp storms everywhere because the Chaos Gods and everything just got way more powerful. And then everybody starves to death because there is literally no more fuel for their fire.
Just about everything in the material world is good. Something about the Halo array that if you haven't read the Forerunner trilogy, you might not know. As much as it was a weapon of last resort, that's at its highest power setting. Did you know you can fine-tune the level of destruction you'd like from it? It can be limited to only a single system, or even planet. So as much as they were the final solution to the Flood, they're also just stupidly OP weapons without killing everyone in the galaxy. Got a planet you need for strategic reasons,
That's
but the
helpful.
Yard has it fortified to hell and back, or the Orcs are there in the usual Orc number of yes. Not anymore. Press a few buttons and now
blow
you
up that Tyranid planet, or that Demon World.
Circle a planet with one because they're just so damn big. Why you would want to do it, but it was a cool scene in the books when some ancient human realized he had to Tokyo drift one around Earth to stay alive. The Forerunners also have the technology to cross the galaxies at will if they feel the need, so theoretically they could just float them in and come aboard later to their almost completely empty new galaxy. But galactic scale death machines aren't the only advantage they have, not even close. For example, every single Forerunner has a smart AI equivalent called an Ancilla in their bodysuit. Every last one of them. They range in power from help with daily tasks to commanding entire systems of other AI. Those bodysuits also make the Forerunners biologically immortal to the point that one of them dying is noted as being a big deal. Before the Flood got to them anyways, but we'll get to that. In this regard, they were the pre-fall Elder without the psychic powers, except also their suits could still give them scientific psychic powers. Look at this bastard, he just force-pulled the Master Chief for shits and giggles. Speaking of Master Chief, you know his power armor, the apex of humanity's military technology, with shields and armor capable of taking a plasma around to the chest and just keeping on trucking? Nothing compared to the Forerunners. It was declared by Guilty Spark to be roughly the Forerunner equivalent of a hazmat suit. Not real armor, a hazmat suit. Even when he went from Mark 5 to 6 between the games, Guilty Spark was still like, why haven't you upgraded your armor, Reclaimer? Do you have that much of a death wish now that your blue stripper friend is gone? They had something colloquially called plasma jockeys by other Forerunners, which are engineers who had the job of taming stars for future engineering projects. They'd go in, make sure the star was going to have a solar rejection or anything that would ruin the day for any Forerunners nearby working on stuff, and just generally help the Forerunners use stars like massive intergalactic Legos. Doing this wasn't a massive Forerunner undertaking that required their entire species' resources and knowledge to undertake. They sent in Steve from the IT department. This is what their miners did to get it ready for the engineers. They didn't even send the scientific masterminds to screw around with the stars. They could create pocket dimensions the size of a solar system, fill the entire thing with actual stuff so it's basically a planet the size of a star system, and then compress that space to be about the size of a football if you're not inside of it. They mastered the physical world in its entirety. I mean, like I said, the Hill Rings were bigger than planets. They were regular.
That's pretty fucking wild. Congrats, here is now infinite resources. Go build some crazy shit. Okay.
Causing stars to go supernova with just their capital ships in the war against the Flood. Not a grand superweapons like what the Necrons have. These were just their battleships. Their weaponry could also atomize almost anything that it hit. That one you don't even gotta read into the lore to find, just play any of the newer Halo games. There's a throwaway line in the Forerunner trilogy that they were powering the construction of an installation by tunneling to another universe and taking energy from it. This isn't a major plot point in how they're desperately trying to create the Halos and the Flood and they're turning to major scientific endeavors to do so. It's like a sentence and a half of dialogue about some guy's side project. Regarding the Halos themselves again, not only did they kill everything in the galaxy, the Forerunners completely reseeded the galaxy with life after they were gone. Such was their intelligence that they set up entire systems to take care of the galaxy, even though they themselves were all but extinct. Oh, and those crappy Sentinels I mentioned earlier, they deployed those in the trillions. They made at least one entire planet out of nothing but Sentinels. Imagine enough robots to blot out the sky and force a planet into permanent darkness, and that's just a small portion of what the Forerunners could do. On top of all this, their starships are nearly immune to damage. I'm afraid I don't have fancy made-up metals like adamantite to impress you with. I just know that one took thousands of missiles and several railgun shots going at an appreciable fraction of the speed of light and didn't even get scratched. The cherry on top of all this is that they produced all of this at a galactic scale.
That is true.
Toe-to-toe with the Imperium in industry and everything
several,
is just better.
Just several hundred tungsten rounds moving at likely multiple digits of the speed of light, like 5% or something. Just, hey, catch this rock at 5% the speed of light. If you don't know math, you don't know or realize how big a number that is.
In fact,
is
they could
pretty
probably
nuts.
outshine the impairment industry because 3 million worlds is better than 1 million, though admittedly Forge worlds are nuts, so I'd say it's equal footing. I mean, they built an
I could agree.
installation several times the size of a planet outside the galaxy, for God's sake. The only thing that's done anything like that in 40k is the Catan, literal machine gods of the material world in the setting. Their stuff also lasts damn near forever in what's essentially mint condition. Take even the Necrons. Sometimes when they wake up, their programming is going a little bit wonky. Meanwhile, most pieces of Dark Age tech that the Imperium finds are either horribly broken or corrupted into near uselessness. If it is a fully functional STC, it's probably sabotaged by chaos or something and is going to summon a Keeper of Secrets the moment you build the design it gives you. Because as is well established, no one in the godforsaken universe of 40k is allowed to have nice things. Forerunner stuff, meanwhile, works as good as it did when it was first made 100,000 years after the fact. Someone said in a Discord I was in once that the Forerunners still weren't up to 40k because the Catan could drain energy like the Forerunner could. That's fair. And yes, I was that asshole who brought up an online debate about two universes fighting. Anyways, back on topic. There's several differences between what the Forerunners did and what the Catan did in this case. One, the Catan did it to species on worlds. The Forerunner could do it to entire universes, so there's a huge difference of scale. Two, understand what all of that...
Wait. I don't see any watermarks. If that's just actual art, that's kind of wild. Megastructures are so fucking cool.
Eat something that was put in front of them. They had the tunnel to another reality entirely, create and set up a system to somehow get energy from that universe, and then turn that energy into something usable. And to further set the two apart, unlike the Catan absorbing the
megastructures are so fucking cool.
This was apparently such a minor detail, such a not worth talking about accomplishment for the Forerunners, that it didn't even merit an entire paragraph in the book. The guy doing it was just like, yeah, just hooking up my universe-scaled car battery to the system so I can build my megastructure. Don't mind.
Oh yeah, just hey, yeah, you see my cool new battery I got? Yeah, it goes to a different universe. Oh, that's neat. I just got regular star-sized power batteries from Steve from IT. That's cool. Is it stronger? It's a bit stronger, but yeah. What the fuck? Throw this into the 40k. 40k gets fucking bodied. This isn't even a contest.
Me, and again, like I mentioned earlier, you know, Catan screwed off from the galaxy and built a planet around himself. The Forerunners did the same thing and built one of their own. It's the Ark. You could see the Milky Way from it during Halo 3, and they made a bigger one before that. It just made the mistake of existing within 100,000 light years of the Flood and was destroyed. That's such a logistical feat that it's hard to even fathom what that means for the Forerunners' capabilities. Because if they built it inside the galaxy, they have the ability to move objects the size of planets around the universe at will. If they built it outside the galaxy, meanwhile, that means they have the infrastructure and technology to move such massive amounts of material.
Outside the galaxy, then likely whole star outside the Milky Way galaxy. You know what? Why not? Fuck it. Just move a whole ass star 1,000 times the mass and energy and a literal ball of plasma the size that's nearly 1,000 times the size of any planet. Why not? Why not just teleport a fucking star?
Around that they can build such megastructure. Nothingness of extragalactic space. They could also digitize and construct mechanical bodies for people, which is what the Didact did to create the Prometheans. So if you still don't think they can match beings like the Catan, they did pretty much the same thing as what they did to the Necron tier. Relatedly, the process is pretty much the same, only you can weaponize it. They didn't even need the conversion chambers or anything like that. It was just point the damn thing in a planet and have that too. They would more or less mutate themselves when they reached certain milestones in their lives by integrating the DNA of other Forerunners and taking on their aspects. This also gave them much of the memories and personality of their donor, like when the Didact from Halo 4 gave his DNA to a Forerunner previously known as Bornstellar, who after that was just called the Didact. The Forerunner known as the Librarian even started referring to Bornstellar as her husband after this happened, she being married to the previous Didact, of course. Oh, and they can also biologically imprint your consciousness into someone else without any soul magic. Doesn't matter what race you are either, they stuck a human into a Forerunner once. To hell with it, give someone the memories of a dog and let it speak.
What?
To the guy every now and then. They could de-evolve.
Okay. Also, I think he's about to say that he could de-evolve me.
You too, just in case all of this sounded too, progressive and scientific for you. They did that to ancient humanity after they defeated them in a war. And because most of this video is just going to be disjointed rambling about the Forerunners' capabilities, let's talk about the slipspace again real quick. It'll be even briefer than last time because this is a video for fun, not theoretical physics. Slipspace is actually a lot like the warp. Things can go wrong and people can straight up disappear into it. It has streams and currents that dictate how travel is done within it. It's also slower than warp travel, at least when the warp isn't isn't spitting you back in time 1,000 years. The thing is, this applies to the UNC and the Covenant. Forerunner slipspace, meanwhile, is nearly instant. They could cross the entire galaxy in days if they so wished to. A Forerunner slipspace drive will never vanish so into nothingness like a human drive would, and whether it's slipspace or not, they can teleport entire armies across massive distances. On top of all of this, they don't have to deal with the forces of hell interfering with them or causing them to appear centuries before or after the event they're responding to takes place. At the very best interpretation, the webway is still only equal to Forerunner slipspace, and it can still break down and be corrupted like the warp, unlike slipspace. Again, like I mentioned, you can also do this in atmosphere, which you can't do with the warp. The only reason the Covenant didn't do
It's kind of crazy. Sounds pretty useful.
these in-atmosphere jumps is because they don't realize just how advanced the reverse-engineered Forerunner stuff is. And you can bet your Emperor bothering ass the Forerunners know what their stuff can do. And because I feel like someone might say I haven't gone enough into specifics to justify this whole video, here's a barrage of those. Their ships had weapons that cause gravity to rip apart the enemy. Each of their
God damn it, phone. Okay.
infantry weapons does what the Necrons do to their enemies, only faster. That is to say, tear them apart molecule by molecule. They can use antimatter weapons on their ships, which violently explodes in contact with normal matter, because that's just how that works. They had potentially up to trillions of warriors in their army at the time of the Flood War, and this was after centuries of disarming themselves due to political infighting. So unlike the Covenant, they have the numbers, power, and industry to fight with. And to top it all
Legends
off,
is goated.
some of them had 6 fingers. I mean, what else is there to say? 6
That's
fingers.
pretty crazy.
Maybe they had 2 tails too. As for psychic
Oh, yeah.
powers, I don't think they'll
Somebody
be
doing
enough.
weird
The
fairy
Forerunners'
shit.
advantage in every other field is too great, even ignoring the fact that they can recreate psychic powers to some extent through technology alone. Sure, the Forerunners are in trouble when Magnus or Eldrad take to the field, but the average psyker who can just about throw a fireball without exploding himself is
How you doing, Doggo?
mincemeat. Anyways, now's probably time to give some structure to this video instead of just continuing to ramble incoherently about Forerunner capabilities. Let's see how the Forerunners would interact with the factions of the 40k galaxy. And spoiler alert for what's
Dogs have been fed. They have gone to the bathroom. Resuming the video.
coming up. You're going to hear some variation of the Forerunners wipe them out pretty frequently. Let's start with the big lads. What would the interactions
about right.
between the Imperium of Man and the Forerunners look like? Well, at first it would look just like the Imperium of Man's interactions with any other alien species that doesn't keel over and submit. Xeno, heretic, murder, kill, all that overused stuff. And then they would find out that, oh shit, these aliens have triple our territory and technology far beyond us. Exterminatus what is the plural of exterminatus? Exterminati? Whatever it is, the Imperium would start dropping those like it was going out of style, because trying to land the Imperial Guard to fight the Forerunners is just going to result in you having one less army of guardsmen. And fair's fair, a virus bomb is going to hurt anyone, Forerunners or not, especially since part 2 of a virus bombing is setting the atmosphere on fire. But the Forerunners
that'll
would
do
learn
it.
pretty quickly that Imperial ships carry planet busters and start devoting more assets to their navy. And then it would be a very rapid downhill spiral against the Imperium. Of course the Space Marines would be involved in this. They're always involved. That being said, remember that funny little clip where the Didact drags Master Chief around like it's Gary's mod?
Yeah.
That they'd still be under heavy
Yeah.
fire from any fight with the Forerunners, and because I'm not Games Workshop, I don't feel like giving the Space Marines plot armor. Because of the level of tech the Forerunners are working with, they're going to get cut down with a little more ceremony than the Guardsmen. Ceramite will give the Forerunners as much trouble as it does the Necrons, which is to say, thank you. Anyway, that is to say it's not going to give them much trouble at all. Plus, at a certain point, the Forerunners are going to realize that even if the Space Marines are more trouble than they're worth to fight head-on, they can just annihilate their ships and worlds to cause them to bleed to death via the most mismatched form of attrition warfare. The Mechanicus might fare slightly better, if only because of a desperate attempt to reverse engineer what few pieces of Forerunner tech they can get their hands on. The Sisters of Battle might make the Forerunners minorly confused when they gun down some lady with angel wings only for her to show right back up, but resurrective immortality is only so helpful when you just get gunned down again by some alien throwing antimatter at you like it's not a big deal. Or the energy sword gun from Halo Legends. Now that'll put some hurt on anyone. Custodes are going to cause problems for the Forerunners, but in the grand scheme of things, they still won't be helpful enough to save the Imperium, because as it turns out, 10,000 is not a very big number on a galactic scale.
Yeah.
In a 1v1, the Custodes have more than a fair shot, but it's never going to be a 1v1 for them. But let me introduce you to a more interesting concept: the Forerunners pacifying and integrating human worlds.
Pacify and integrate is a very interesting way to say, hey humans, I hear that you don't like living in filth, and that eating food made from dead people is a kind of terrible thing. Would you like clean water, clean homes, non-horrible work environments, and food that is made from actual animals and vegetables? You might like it. And then nearly every single Imperial world will just say, fuck it, we're cool. and it would ultimately be
In
fairly.
Halo, the Forerunners stomped humanity. Perspective, it seemed like the human race as a whole was gunning for their territory, rather than humanity cleansing Forerunner planets infected by the Flood, which was what was actually happening. But in 40K, I don't think it would take too long for them to realize that there's a whole lot of human worlds that, for whatever reason, would be more than happy to be free of Imperial control. Given that a driving motivation for the Forerunners is the mantle of responsibility, which instructs them to guide and protect the galaxy, I've no doubt that a decent amount of planets that fall to the Forerunners would do so willingly. I mean, it happens to the Tau, surely the same thing could happen for the Forerunners. And while yes, it
Yeah.
does come with the caveat that the Forerunners are a bit more equal than everyone else, once again, this is just the same as the Tau, and it still works for them. By the end of this war, I don't expect the Imperium to still be a major entity. Maybe not completely gone, if only because of the Emperor, but certainly reduced to a shell of its former self. Relatedly, and admittedly this is a bit of a stretch, there's a chance that the Emperor wouldn't hate the Forerunners like other aliens. I mean, in 40K, there's the Dark Eldar, the Orcs, Tyranids, Necrons, and more. Those aliens suck, but the Forerunners, who of course would still be focused on keeping
They're
themselves
pretty
powerful,
cool.
would still be more than willing to
They're pretty
focus on the
friendly.
greater threats to the galaxy, like chaos. An interesting result of them somehow appearing in 40K could be a sort of temporary alliance with the Imperium, because as we all know, the Imperium is a god-awful government with how it treats its people, but the guys next door sacrificing entire planets to one of four Satans are probably a lot worse for galactic peace. Of course, the Imperium is still a horrendous state, and the Emperor is, to put it lightly, a bit of a control freak, so there's no way the Foreigners
That is pretty lightly putting it.
to
Sure.
tolerate the Imperium, and it would be temporary at best. That being said, it's still something I find to be an interesting idea. As for the other species, let's go. The Tau are a brief talk. The Forerunners might be able to convince the Tau to peace talks, otherwise they're going to force them back onto their home planets like they did with ancient humanity in Halo. The various other minor Xeno species would probably be turned into something between clients, saints, and allies. The Eldar and them
Yeah.
would likely have little reason to interact. I mean, the craft worlds in ideal circumstances sit in their own little corner of the galaxy. If the Forerunners show up and suddenly start wiping out threats to the Eldar left, right, and center, there probably wouldn't be much in the way of reasons for them to fight. Same goes for the Exodites. That being said, any fight the Eldar try to get into with the Forerunners is going to result in there being one less craft world around. BL-Tan especially is going to learn the hard way that at their weakest possible power level, a civilization equal in power to the War in Heaven Necrons just showed up. The Dark Eldar? Ha! Say goodbye, Kamara. I don't care how many black holes Vex sends their way. The Forerunners' number one priority with them is going to be to slip space rupture a halo ring into that godforsaken place and send everyone in it to Kingdom Come.
And okay, so they're in this webway. There's also this thing called the Black Library, but like, I guess they got knowledge or something in there. We'll figure out how to just not hit that part, but yeah.
The Harlequins, meanwhile, might actually form a sort of alliance with them, since their overall goals are generally more benevolent to everyone rather than just the Eldar. The Orcs aren't just going to be exterminated, like, wholesale. Oh sure, they'll do their best to put up a fight, but then some foreigner scientist is going to catapult a star at them for funsies. I wish I had more to say about them, because I do like the Orcs. War in Heaven Cork would probably give them a pretty tough fight, but modern 40K Orcs are going to tragically be pretty unceremoniously destroyed. Same likely goes for the Tyranids. Unlike the Flood, there's no mistaking this particular intergalactic swarm of locusts for a minor threat you can contain. A hive fleet is many things, but subtle is not one of them. You might say that Gene Sealer cults could be an issue, but those Ancilla the Foreigner have in their suits would pretty quickly realize that the guy inside is suddenly praying to the Tyranids and alert other Foreigners to the threat. Remember, they all have one. The Tyranids, meanwhile, also don't have the same strength as the Flood. They don't expand quite as rapidly as the Flood, and they don't gain information in the same way as the Flood does. Tyranids are all about adapting to their enemy's strengths. The Flood outright steals the
when he says adapt to their strengths, effectively, if you're fighting the Tyranids and you use primarily plasma weapons and you use weapons that deal like thermal damage, heat and stuff, they'll grow thicker hides that are better at resisting heat. That way they don't take as much damage and they can get closer to you and then eat your face, because that's what the Tyranids do. They eat people's faces. Should probably gesture up here, because it's there. Yeah. Gesturing here. Yeah, eating people's faces is what the Tyranids do. So really, when it comes to their adaptations, they're not stealing your strengths like a zombie virus or the blood or the necromorphs kinda. They just kinda grow different shells or make their claws sharper to hit a specific weakness. Pardon me, that you have. It was a bit messy.
Those strengths. The Forerunners would find it much easier. them. And if nothing else, they can send in the robotic armies of Sentinels and not have to worry about the whole biomass harvesting issue the Tyranids cause.
Yeah, they can just
There
throw
are, in fact,
infinite
reasons
robots
they
at you.
just do that with the Flood, in case we were wondering why
That
they
can
didn't
be
do
pretty
that in Halo
effective.
lore, but we'll get to that later. The Leagues of Votann, since there's suddenly enough information on them to talk about, might get along fairly well with them. The Forerunners clearly have no problem with AI, so they might even get the Forerunners to help repair the Votann themselves. Granted, the new squads don't seem to be that much more keen on aliens than the Imperium is, and if it does lead to war, then the extra tech the Leagues have won't be enough to spare them from the Ecumene's wrath. I don't think Chaos is going to have that much luck either. Unlike perhaps even some members of the Covenant, there's nothing to tempt the Forerunners with. Tempt them with power, they have all the power they want and more. And the ambitious among the Forerunner elite aren't stupid enough to sell their souls to demons. Tempt them with pleasure? For one, their entire mentality is ensuring the galaxy is at peace with each other, which is inherently selfless. And two, they have access to almost all the pleasures anyone could ask for if they really want it. Why go for more? Because some crab-headed dude said it would feel really good, trust me? Inflict plagues on them and make them suffer until they join, perhaps? Well, they're biologically immortal, and for reference, the UNSC, who would absolutely get stomped at 40k, have curing cancer as something so routine a merchant ship's medbay can treat it. If the UNSC can do that, as far below the Forerunners as they are, disease is just not an issue for the Forerunners. There's nothing for Chaos to latch onto and corrupt the Forerunners with. As for actual
That's
battles,
pretty crazy.
like the Chaos Space Marines, well, see what I said would happen to normal Space Marines for how that'll turn out. Demons would do better, but not by much. Siege demons might pull some screwy stuff on the Forerunners and take a decent amount down, but not enough to balance out what the Forerunners have in number and power. And if they reverse engineer Necron tech, which I have no doubt they would, they'll learn how to shut down Chaos. Hell, they might even team up with a few dynasties to push back Chaos, since the Forerunners have nothing against AI, and a few Necron dynasties aren't that bad. Speaking of, we finally have the Necrons, and oh boy is this gonna cause some colorful arguments. As well as the Krork and the pre-fall Eldar, the War in Heaven era Necrons could certainly put up a hell of a fight. While I still think the Forerunners are on equal footing with the C'tan, the sheer amount of them around as well as the numberless legions of united Necron military would be quite the challenge to take down. The thing is, this video is all about the Forerunners facing off against modern-day 40k, and the modern-day Necrons are, to be frank,
I didn't realize I was so far away.
As is always the case with 40k factions, except for the Tau, and Tyranids, I guess. They're disunified and war with each other almost as often as the Imperium blows up its own planets, and usually for even less valid reasons. While I'm sure they've mostly woken up, there's still going to be some in slumber who have not.
I still need to read The Infinite and the Divine, or, well, on account of my poor vision, I'll probably just use the audiobook. Hopefully it's as good. Probably. Yeah. This would not go very spectacular.
At best equal to the Forerunners, and combined with their lack of unity and the Forerunners' supreme industrial capabilities, there won't be as many Necrons fighting on the same battlefield as there will be Forerunners in their construct. Plus, Slip Space once again reigns supreme. They can cross the galaxy in days if they need to. They can burn down your planet, and then that same fleet can be a segmentum over by tomorrow. And to top it all off, even if you do think the Necrons are technologically superior, it's well within Forerunner capability to reverse engineer Necron technology. I mean, the Forerunners are so advanced that they consider binary primitive to them. Binary, that thing even Dark Age humanity used in its tech? One Forerunner found an ancient Forerunner ship and was shocked that they ever used it. That's how far they've gone beyond it, technologically speaking. The Forerunners, to throw one last bit of disconnected rambling at you, also have something called the Domain. While the Domain is absolutely monstrous and will be covered in a later video because this is going to be a 3-parter miniseries, the best way to simplify it is Forerunner Internet. While information can be lost in it, more recent stuff is fairly easy for the Forerunners to access. So a Forerunner can research into Necron tech, put his findings into the Domain, and bam, every Forerunner in the galaxy can now know how that particular piece of technology works, what its strengths are, and most importantly for the military, how to counter it. There's far, far more to the Domain, but for now, let's just leave it at that. And if nothing else, the Forerunner...
This whole video's just basically been me, yep, that sounds about right. Yep, the Forerunners are gonna fucking destroy this galaxy. They're gonna purge chaos within a couple of weeks, the Orcs in a couple of months, and the Tyranids probably in a couple of days. And everybody else is gonna have to sit quietly and stop fighting each other. Except the Tau and the Draft Rollers, they're fine. They can just keep doing whatever they want to. Well, they can keep not bothering other people if they want to. And humanity will get a second-ish golden age. Yay! Less suffering, much less suffering.
accelerate time so quickly that billions of years would pass with them in an instant. I don't care what you are, Necron or not, that's gonna mess you up. There's a lot more I could talk about the Forerunners, how they weaponized their own method of FTL, the deeper concepts of the domain, how their FTL itself started diving into metaphysics, but by now I'm sure you get the point of this video.
Okay.
In modern day 40k, I think the Forerunners would reign supreme and force the mantle onto the Milky Way galaxy as they did millions of years ago. And of course, this is one big opinion piece, so please tell me how wrong or right you think I am. I fully admit I'm biased in favor of Halo on this, but so what? Biases make life fun. It's good to hear a differing opinion every now and then. Either way, here's part 2. There's one last major faction, I guess, to cover in Halo for next time, and they're hungry.
Yeah, that was the Forerunners. They are gonna fucking destroy 40k, because apparently they can just build anything they goddamn want, have 3 million planets, and every single one of them is effectively in super armor that makes you a god, and then also comes free packaged with their own personal Cortana. Okay. You're busted as fuck, and they're gonna destroy the galaxy. Good to know. I don't need to overthink this very much. At any rate, thanks everybody for joining me and learning about the Forerunners and their apparently insane capabilities. I look forward to talking with seeing episode 3, and I think there was an episode 4. At some point, I'll watch up 4. Yeah, I'll watch episodes 3 and 4 of this series, and I look forward to seeing what everybody thinks about it. Go subscribe and like Pancreas No Works videos, then subscribe to me, like my videos, post comments down below to tell me what you want me to look at next, and everybody have a great day. Later.